Hello, everyone. Thank you again so much for joining us for our 2 and 2 podcast. Again, joined with our pastor, Blake Switzer. And we're so excited that you're joining us again. And again, you can listen to us on Spotify. You can watch us and please subscribe on YouTube. You can also see us on our social media outlets like Facebook as well. So again, thank you for tuning in and listening to us. And today, Blake, we want to dive into just the ways that we see God working in our church, the way we see Him working in our personal life. And the past few weeks at our church, it's been monumental, especially coming through a season of pandemic and to seeing things start to reemerge and open up again. And so just a couple things that we'll dive into a little bit later is just seeing the amount of ladies that we had at the women's brunch and now starting a women's Bible study. VBS this past week, there's so much where we see God at work. And so I'm excited to talk about those things and just to be able to show what God's doing throughout our community is such an important piece to us. But celebrating those things is important. And that's what this is a part of what we're doing today is celebrating. And so
and I think that's so important because I think a lot of people that are in leadership of different kinds, we get so focused on what's next, right? So it's, we do this and it's, okay, what's next? And what do we need to move on to? And I've been so guilty of that, of just always focusing on the next thing and sometimes not taking time to really celebrate and to thank God for what He has done. And so, that's what today's all about.
Yeah. And we see that in Scripture. I know you'll talk a little bit more about that. Just the importance of taking the time to celebrate is so impactful to our spiritual life. If we were always just focused on what the next thing is, it can suck the joy out of our spiritual life. It can suck the joy out of our relationship with God if we're only focusing on the next thing He's doing, but not celebrating the huge ways that He's won people to Him, not celebrating the huge ways that He's made impacts on our life. And I think doing that encourages us, but it also leads to longevity in ministry as well.
Yeah, and you mentioned that it really it has a biblical basis. All throughout the Old Testament, it seems that all the festivals, the memorials, all the things that God would command His people to do, and He would tell them to celebrate, in some cases set aside large chunks of time just to celebrate and remember. And just all throughout, especially the Old Testament, you see God commanding His people to stop and remember what He has done. And I just think that's a healthy rhythm for us too, to develop that and to our own lives personally, but sometimes together, and we can stop and remember as a church too what God's doing.
I mean, just thinking of a few of those things and to see how that's lasted just thousands and thousands of years of just seeing, building a rock memorial to celebrate, how He led His people into a different land and things like that. Celebration is such an important part. And like you said, the rhythm of that leads to longevity. And we're kind of proof of that. We celebrate the things that God has done. We anticipate Him to continue to move in the future. And that's one of the things that I'm not just excited about the next thing that we're going to be able to do. I'm excited about the celebration once we see what God does in it. And that motivates me and it drives me. So let's talk about a few of those things. We're coming out of a season where we couldn't meet together as a church. We moved into a new season where we're starting to slowly reopen, and now we're getting to a place where things are starting to normalize a bit, and we see the faithfulness of God through a very difficult time. And then at the same time, we see what this new season could look like, and we get to celebrate that. So what are a few things that have stood out to you?
Yeah, well, I'll share a couple stories with you. And back to what you said, of things normalizing. First of all, I would say things have normalized a lot faster than I thought they would. And so that's been encouraging to me because it was such a slow process for a long time. And I kind of feel like within about a month, everything almost just came back,
Yep.
you know. But it started, the first one to me was when our women had a lunch, or I guess a brunch up here on a Saturday morning. And I drove up here just to kind of pop in, take some pictures and things like that. And the parking lot looked like Sunday morning. It was packed out, went upstairs, and so that was exciting. But the thing that was just really almost caught me unexpectedly was the energy of having people together, and all those ladies together in a room, and they're worshiping together, and then they had, you know, a panel of speakers and things like that. But it was really just that excitement and energy of God's people being together and doing their thing. And it was more powerful, I think, than I even expected it to be. And I was just there for 5 or 10 minutes, but
it's like we get to feel the importance of that for the first time all over again,
exactly.
even though we know it mentally, but being able to experience it is something different. And I think that's why, like, I just got to see the pictures of what was happening, and I felt like I was there,
right?
And I wanted to be there. And too bad it was just a ladies' event.
I know.
You know, I wasn't welcome.
I joked with them. I thought about shaving my legs and coming. But I thought that'd be, you know, that'd be
you should
weird,
have.
so I just came anyway. But so that was one of them. But the second one was, I think it was Thursday night. It was Thursday night of this past week. You know, we had Vacation Bible School, which just to see the largest enrollment that we've had. You know, I think we had over 400 kids register, over 300 kids every night. Thursday night, I had the privilege of being able to present the gospel, and I just, to be totally honest, I always wrestle with what's that going to be like, especially with the first group, which was kindergarten through second grade.
Yes.
And I'm thinking, how is this going to go? You know, I'm trying to talk to these kids that are, 5, 6, 7 years old, and present the gospel, and they were amazing. And then we had the next group, 3rd through 6th graders after that. But it was a powerful night. A lot of kids, made decisions and responded, and you could just feel God working in all of that. And so right now we're kind of in the process of sorting through and following up and all that. But the part that was so impactful to me after going through all that, and the second time around, watching our volunteers that were there to love on these kids and minister to kids, and some of them were teenagers, and so I'm watching little teenagers, little kids surrounding these teenagers, and one of them had 3 or 4 kids that she's talking with and praying with and all this. Well, they went from that into kind of another worship song right there. And I'm standing in the back. I'm just kind of taking all this in. So we've got the team on stage that's leading worship. We've got little pockets of kids praying with, sometimes adults, sometimes other teenagers. All of this is going on, this worship song, which was actually kind of impactful. It was a VBS song, but it was a pretty impactful song. And it just kind of hit me of, my goodness, God is really doing some cool things right now, but I kind of went a little nostalgic too, because I'm reflecting back. I'm sure a lot of people probably know, 20 years this year. This is our 20th year. And so, just thinking through, we've come a long way in 20 years, and God gets the credit for that. But it just, I don't know, it's just one of those moments, and I don't usually get super sentimental real quickly,
right?
But I did on that one. I had to go. I went in my office for a little bit and just kind of, wrote some things down, and was a little teary-eyed on that night, just in gratitude for how God is working.
Yeah, well, I think being nostalgic is a huge way to celebrate and thinking where God has brought you from. Yeah. And one of my favorite pictures from early on in the church is when y'all were at the Whistle Stop and you're sitting down on the edge of a stage, and there's 4 kids, and I think it's 2 families are represented between the 4 kids. It's one of my favorite pictures, and to now think that we had 400 kids registered at VBS, like that's monumental and a reason to celebrate.
It is
God's faithfulness, and that
absolutely
the hurdles that this church has had to climb over to get to where we are now. Right. But I mean, just think about what the next 20 years might hold.
Right.
And, when I'm 60, what we might be celebrating.
That's right.
And when you're 150. I'm just kidding.
Are we that far apart?
Gotcha.
Moses and be like, who was it? Joshua going out when he was really old. But I think one of the things too that just talking about celebrating God's goodness is watching God work through other people.
Yeah.
That really excites me,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and seeing that take place was just encouraging to me.
Yeah.
And I know you had the same opportunity I did of during the week just kind of chatting with people, and some of them are folks we haven't had a chance to interact with a whole lot recently, and so just being reminded of the way God has blessed us
Right.
with great folks and watching them work through them.
Well, and that's such a great point. And just even in my role in the church, I get to see that kind of weekly. And sometimes I need to celebrate that better. But just the things that have happened over the past couple months of all of our Connect groups moving from some of them still meeting virtually to now all of our groups are in person. And not only are they in person, but they're thriving. That I'm having to talk through multiplication plans with a lot of our groups right now, which I didn't think that's where it'd be. And that's such a reason to celebrate. And we have, I got a call last week. It was Foster Love was open, and that in the month of June they served close to 40 foster kids, and just the impact that makes in our community. And that came from a passion and desire from a few people in our church, and just to see how God has used them, it excites me, and it thrills me. And just as our church as a whole, I get the opportunity at the end of every service to talk through what our food item is going to be.
Right.
And we got the information back that we took the VBS food, and they collected almost 1,700 pounds of food.
That's amazing.
And then they sent me the results of, since April, we've collected over 4,000 pounds, which is over 2 tons of food in a few months. And to see how our church responds to the needs of people in our community, like I get to look at their faces every Sunday when I say that, and get to see when we leave this place, we're going to go pick up this food, and we're going to be a part of something impactful. Yeah. And I selfishly, I get to celebrate that a lot individually. Yeah. But it's a neat thing for me, and that's one of the reasons why I love my role so much, is I get to celebrate what God's doing through other individuals as well. Right.
Yeah, and just to see God working in people's lives. I mean, one other story, one of the nights of VBS, one of the youth parents sought me out and came over to me, and didn't have anything to do with VBS, but our students had just come back from youth camp not long before that, and he made a point to really seek me out to say, I just want to tell you what an impact the youth camp had on our daughter, and I just want to thank you guys for doing that. Of course, I have nothing to do with it, but he just wanted to share with me how meaningful that was. So that to me is when you see people that are really truly feeling like their lives are being changed in some way, and God is working, that is where the celebration comes. And I think for me, it's a matter sometimes of paying more attention to that and just being more aware of it, because it doesn't have to be church stuff. It doesn't have to be big events. It can be, things in our own lives or whatever it may be, but just noticing what God is doing and,
Absolutely.
giving him credit for it.
Yeah, and that's, like you said, we didn't have a huge part in youth camp. We weren't even able to go because of some of the rules and stuff that they had in place there. But being able to hear Taylor and be able to hear those kids and hear what God has done, that's what community is. That when our students win, we also win, and we get to reap the benefit of that as well. And so that's a huge part. But you said something that it's not always just church programming and the things that we have going on activity wise, but that God works in mighty ways in our lives individually, in the individual lives of our people as well. Let's transition. Let's talk about that a little bit. Where do we see God working in our personal lives right now? Yeah,
the biggest one for me, a lot of people probably are familiar with our story, but is with our daughter Autumn, who's going through cancer treatment, and sometimes it's more difficult than others. Actually, as this is being filmed, I got a call early this morning, and it wasn't the greatest start to the day that she's had. But that even just being aware of, that's the first one of those, and even at that she was doing okay, but that was the first call like that I've gotten in a while. The first conversation like that. So just being able to reflect on watching I guess something that we have prayed so much about and have honestly just wrestled through so much. It's when she's not feeling well, and she's away at school and all that, and we're not able to be there. It's really hard, and I mean, that I've shared that with you. It's like this emotional roller coaster of, if it's a good day for her, it's a good day for me, and if it's not, it tends to be more difficult. And so it's just kind of this up and down. So, but we've had a season through the summer so far where there really haven't been those dips, and I'm sure they'll come again.
Right.
But I'm just grateful for a season of time where things are better there.
Yeah.
And so anyway,
celebrating the season that you're in.
Absolutely.
is great.
Yeah, and that's one of the things that we've talked about a lot. Sean and I talk about is just whether it's that or whatever else it is just when you're going through those good times, to celebrate that, because there's a tendency sometimes to think, I don't want to get too excited about this because it's probably not going to last, or something else is going to happen, or when's the next shoe going to drop, kind of thing. And that's no way to live.
Yeah.
It's just not. That's not a good mindset to have. And so trying to train ourselves to say, when times are good, whether it be with her or other daughter Brooke, who's in nursing school, and that's tough too. So that presents its own set of challenges. But just it's hard when things are hard, but when it's good, let's just lean into that and celebrate it.
For sure. And even when times are hard, I've learned, God gives you these glimpses. A lot of times, like even for me, just in the season of the pandemic, when it's challenging for everybody, but I just felt really motivated to share my faith more in those moments, and to see how God worked in the lives of others. And I've had opportunities to have long-term relationships with people that are not believers, that are having gospel conversations. I never imagined that would happen. And also, if it wasn't for COVID, I don't know if they'd have been open to have those conversations as well. And so seeing God, even celebrating him in the midst of the turmoil, is he's still God and he's still at work. And on the back end of that, just recently seeing Caleb and Caden come to faith in Christ. And we get to celebrate an aspect of that almost every single day, because ever since that moment, something else clicks in their mind and it makes sense. And just in this season, my wife I just see God speaking to her in a way that I've just never seen before. And she's always had this depth and this closeness in relationship with him, and it encourages and inspires me. But this is a different season, and the things that he's teaching her and that she is teaching me, like I go to bed almost every night like, I've never thought about that before. And I'm encouraged, and to have deep gospel conversations with my wife, it's just, I love it, and I get to celebrate that every day. And so there's a lot of neat things going on personally, but I love what you said too, of just even when you're in the valley, God is still God, and he's the reason to celebrate.
And just, I think too, just looking for God's hand on where is he bringing good out of the situations that we go through. One other thing that just comes to mind real quick is a number of people that I've had conversations with that are not able to be in person. Some of them due to health issues, some of them due just a distance or whatever the case may be. But the number of people that have said being able to watch the church services online has been a lifesaver for us. And that's something we probably wouldn't be doing right now if it weren't for the pandemic, that forced our hand to start doing some things. So just seeing that now and saying, wow, there's a broad impact that comes from that. And this has all been rough that we've gone through, but you can definitely see and celebrate the good that comes out of it too.
Yes. Celebrating what God does in the unplanned, I think is a place I live in. I think my entire ministry career, even just Gateway being our church home is something that, like, who'd have thought, and we get to celebrate that.
Who'd have thought you'd want to come work with me?
Yeah, that's it. I was like, that I met you, and I was like, I still want to take this job.
Take it anyway.
Yeah. But again, church, I'm thankful that we get to celebrate with them, that we have a church family of brothers and sisters in Christ, that we get to do this together, and that we can walk the valleys with them and celebrate God's goodness in that, and we can walk to the mountaintops and celebrate with them as well.
Yep.
So I love our church family. I love our community that God's established here, and that's something to celebrate in and of itself.
Yep.
My best friends are here.
Yeah.
The people that love me the most are right here,
Yep.
and that's unique.
Yeah, absolutely.
So Blake, it's almost lunchtime.
It is almost lunchtime. Yeah.
And neither of us are giant, huge McDonald's
I'm not.
fans.
Not to say.
I eat it more often than I should because my kids love chicken nuggets. Not my favorite there. But what we thought would be fun, and y'all can participate, is Blake has ordered his favorite meal from McDonald's.
Yes,
and
if there is
favorite
such
is a
thing.
very
Yes,
loose
it is.
term. I've ordered
French fries. I love their French fries.
That's good.
but
And their sodas. There's something
there's-
unique.
yes.
And their
That is
breakfast
good.
is good. Breakfast is good. Their breakfast is like you eat that, you don't have to eat again for like 3 days. Like I'm never hungry again. But you do. But so Blake's ordered his favorite lunch. I've ordered my favorite lunch.
Yep.
And I've halved them and we've put it in a little package. And so Blake, you can let the folks know what your loose favorite
My least favorite.
meal
Let's say if
is.
you make me pick one, I'm going to
Yes.
pick the fish sandwich.
And it was really unique. Blake texted me this morning because I go, I'm going to pick up the McDonald's. What do you want? And he goes, I don't really like anything, but if I had to choose something, it'd be the fish fillet. And I go, Blake, that's what I was going to choose. We both like the fish fillet sandwich. And the creepiest thing I've ever done in my entire life happened this morning at 10:30, ordering a fish sandwich from McDonald's. They just looked at me like I was an alien. But we got the fish fillet sandwich, but we couldn't both choose fish fillet because
Right,
we're going to
right.
rank these
Okay.
lunches. And so I chose my second favorite is the double cheeseburger.
Okay.
So in our bag here,
Uh-huh.
we both have a Filet-O-Fish sandwich box.
All
And
right.
it has a half Filet-O-Fish sandwich
All
and has a
right, all right.
half double cheeseburger.
Nice.
And as I cut it, I noticed that the fish fillet sandwich is loaded with tartar sauce.
Oh, that would be a deal killer for me, but okay.
Oh, it's loaded. And there's
All right.
there's your French fries. So since you
Yes.
do like their French
I do
fries.
like the French
And
fries.
what beverage did you order, Blake?
Of Dr. Pepper, of course.
All right. So I ordered a Coke. So here's the rules. So, folks, Blake's favorite drink, Dr. Pepper. Mine's Coke. We both got French fries. But
Cold French fries
favorite
aren't the best, by the way.
entree, they're not the best. Favorite entree, Blake went with the fish fillet.
Okay.
I went with the double cheeseburger. So one bite of each. We're going to start with the, which one are you grabbing there?
I've got the fish
the
fillet
fish
in my
fillet.
hand just because it was closer to me. But
Okay, so
we're
one
starting with-
bite and then rank it 1 to 10.
Okay.
Okay. Don't y'all love to hear us chewing in the microphone?
Mm-hmm.
Try not to spit that on the mic, okay?
I'll wipe it off. Wow.
Okay.
All right.
You weren't lying.
It's loaded with
About the
tartar
tartar
sauce.
sauce,
It is
okay.
loaded. So 1 to 10.
All that tartar sauce, I'm going to go with a 4.
I was thinking 4 as well.
Okay.
I'm going to give it a 4.
All right.
All right. Double cheeseburger
Double
time.
cheeseburger.
It is not loaded with tartar
Oh,
sauce.
it does have I'm going to avoid the pickle. not the-
It's got a giant pickle in it for sure. And then we're going to make Judd eat the other half of our bitten sandwiches in a minute.
Yes.
That's actually not bad.
I was just going to say, I'm going to surprise myself with my answers.
I think I'm shocked as well.
I think I'd go with a 6 on the.
I'm going to go with a 7.
All right.
So that means our double cheeseburger meal wins. So
It does.
folks, to help to kind of determine this as well, in the comments, put what your favorite. If you're watching on Facebook or on YouTube, put your favorite meal from McDonald's, but also help us determine what's the favorite beverage from McDonald's. I think it's Coke. There's nothing like McDonald's Coke.
They do have good Coke. But
Dr.
I
Pepper
couldn't-
is the same anywhere. It's just Dr. Pepper.
I don't know. It's better. than
Those
McDonald's, too.
23 spices and flavors can hit the road and give me my Coke. But Blake, this was fun. I'm glad
fun.
Judd didn't have to hit you in the face with a candy bar this
Me
week.
too. Or a fish sandwich.
That was 3 episodes ago.
So, and Judd, you've been saved now. You just have to eat a double cheeseburger. You don't have to
There you go.
actually. I thought you were going to have to eat the fish fillet sandwich.
And
So-
some cold French fries.
and
You
some
can add
cold
that,
French
too.
fries. But guys, thank you again for tuning in again. Wait for next month for our next episode as well. Thank you all.